Medic Mind. Motivate, mentor, maximize.
Now let's look at syllogisms. So what are syllogisms? Syllogisms contain two or more statements which are followed by a series of conclusions. You need to use logical reasoning to deduce which conclusions follow from the information given. The information may not actually make actual sense. For example, you may see a statement that says all bananas are vegetables, all vegetables are desserts. This does not make sense in real life, but you should not use any external knowledge when answering questions on syllogisms. So key tips for syllogism questions now. Once you crack the technique for syllogisms, it becomes so much easier. When you're first doing the questions, it can be so abstract, it can be so, I really don't know how to answer this question. But as long as you keep going, it'll become so much easier eventually. You should read all the information multiple times until it makes logical sense. You'll be given a statement, it won't make sense at first, of course, but if you read it 5 or 6 times, it will start to make sense to you a lot more. You should also pay special attention to words such as some, none, all, and only. They will, as long as you look at these straight away, they will actually influence how quickly you can answer the question. Because, for example, if you see a statement that says all bananas are elephants compared to only some bananas are elephants, those two mean completely different things. As soon as you spot them, note them down on your whiteboard as soon as possible. But the most important tip I give you is to not make assumptions about the information using external knowledge. Most of the time, the information won't make actual sense anyway, but when you start to use external knowledge, it will start to cloud your judgment and start to cloud your logical thinking processes for these questions. And you should always draw Venn diagrams wherever possible. I found that whenever I do syllogism questions, whenever I draw a Venn diagram, it saves me a lot of time and it makes the question a lot easier. Now the issue is there's so many different types of syllogism that you might get in the exam. So now what we're going to do now is to go through every single syllogism type that you'll get and go through a Venn diagram for each question as well as an example. So let's start by introducing the Venn approach. It is recommended that you use Venn diagrams. These aren't as straightforward as the ones used in maths exams for GCSE or that sort of thing. So now we're going to go through the different types of Venn diagrams and when to use them. So the first pattern you may get is sum A are B. Now what can you deduce from this Venn diagram? You can see that sum A are not B because sum of the A does not overlap with B. You can say the same for B. Sum B are not A because sum of B does not overlap with A. You know that sum A are B because there is a section that overlaps in the middle. And you know that sum B are A because a section overlaps in the middle. So an example now. Some giraffes are sharks. So what can you deduce from that statement? Now draw a Venn diagram here because you know it's sum A are B. Identify it straight away like that. Draw the Venn diagram. The question will ask you place yes if the conclusion follows, place no if the conclusion does not follow. You may get statements such as no giraffes are sharks. That doesn't make sense because we see a bit of overlap in the middle. The 4 things that can be deduced here is that some giraffes are not sharks, some sharks are not giraffes, some giraffes are sharks, and some sharks are giraffes. I hope that makes sense to you. Next, the second pattern you may get is all A are B. Now a Venn diagram for this would be a circle and a circle over that circle. What can be deduced here? Well, we know that all A are B, as it says in the statement. We know that some A are B and some B are A. Now the reason we know this is because by default, if all A are B, then some A have to be B. In the same way, if all A are B, some B have to be A. Now, just by using A, B, it can appear a lot more confusing. So let me show you with another example. All beaches are sites. Now, we know that all beaches are sites because we've drawn the Venn diagram here. And we also know that some beaches are sites because if all beaches are sites, then some beaches also have to be sites anyway. And we know that some sites are beaches. I've used a real life example here to make it a lot clearer because we know that some people interpret beaches as sites. If we say all beaches are sites, then of all the sites there are in the world, there is a small portion that are beaches. Pattern 3. Some A are not B. Now, This is a very, very tricky question. There are two things that could be deduced, but it's either one of the other. It could be that some A are B, or it could be that no A is B. Let's look at an example now to make it clearer. Some snakes are not reptiles. Now, when you read that statement, you think, wait a second, if some snakes are not reptiles, does that mean that some snakes are reptiles? Or does it mean that no snakes are reptiles? You can't know for sure which of the two it is, but this will help you rule out options that will not make sense at all. Conclusions that will not follow, for example, would be all reptiles are snakes. All reptiles are not snakes. We don't know this for sure just by looking at the statement. We know that either some snakes are reptiles or that no snakes are reptiles. These are the two possible conclusions that could be deduced from the statement. No more than that. Pattern 4, no A or B. Now this is the most simplest pattern you'll get. If you know no A or B, then you know no, it says it in the statement. So no spreads are peanut butter. So no spreads are peanut butter. We know that no spreads are peanut butter. Now this is the most simplest question you get. I highly doubt that you'll get a question as easy as this, but you never know. Pattern 5 now. Some A are B and some B are C. Now it is getting a lot more complicated than before. There are 3 different items here, and if you look at the statement, you can see why it's so important to draw a Venn diagram here. Just when I've drawn the Venn diagram, I can see straight away that A and C are far away from each other. Therefore, it's an unknown relationship. There could be a relationship between A and C, but we don't know for sure. We know that there is a relationship between A and B and a relationship between B and C. So what can be deduced for sure? We know that some A are B, and because some A are B, some B are also A. The same thing applies for B and C. We know that some B are C, that must mean that some C are also B. But between A and C, again, there could be a relationship. It could be that of those that are B, some are A. And as we know that some B are C, some of those B's that are A's could also be C's. But remember, do not make any assumptions. It says place yes and the conclusion follows. It does not follow straight away. We'd have to guess here. Now this slide is just confirming that point. There could be a relationship. Either there can be items A, B and C, or there can be items that are just A. But we don't know this, so when we answer the question, we should assume there is no relationship. So example statements. Some A is C, all A is C, no A is C. These are 3 examples that cannot be drawn straight away. We don't know for sure that some A is C because we don't know the relationship between A and C. Same applies for the second statement and the third statement. There could be a relationship, but we don't know for sure. An example for this type. Some buildings are skyscrapers, some skyscrapers are towers. Now, look at this straight away. We know that some buildings could be towers, but it's an unknown relationship. We don't know for sure. Because although this does make real life sense, a lot of the syllogisms won't. It could be some buildings are Jaffa cakes, some Jaffa cakes are elephants. Like that makes no actual sense. So don't use any external knowledge here. So what can be drawn from this Venn diagram? We know that some buildings are skyscrapers, and if some buildings are skyscrapers, then some skyscrapers are also buildings. We know that some skyscrapers are towers, and by the same logic, some towers are also skyscrapers. Between buildings and towers, there could be a relationship, but we don't know for sure. Pattern 6. All A are B and all B are C. Previously we looked at all A are B. Now all you have to do is add another layer to this circle here, to the 2 circles shown. Now what can be deduced here? Let's look at it step by step as always. Between A and B, we know that all A are B, and by the same logic, some A are B, and of those that are B, some B are A. Between B and C, the statement tells us that all B are C, and that means by default some B are C because all B are C, and some C are also B. Between A and C, we know that if all A are B and all B are C, automatically there is a direct correlation between A and C. All A will be C. Some A will be C and some C will be A. Put it this way, if all A are B, B and A are basically, you can replace B here with A, right? That means if instead of a B it said A again, the same thing would apply, wouldn't it? All A would be C, some A would be C, and some C would be A. All cities are countries and all countries are continents. So now what can be deduced here? Between cities and countries, all cities are countries, some cities are countries, and some countries are cities. Between cities and continents, we can see that all cities are continents, some cities are continents, and some continents are cities. Between countries and continents, all countries are continents, some countries are continents, and by that same logic, some countries are continents. When you look at the statement, you might think this is so hard to deduce, but the Venn diagram makes it so much easier because all the information is presented in a graphical manner. Thank you for watching this free Medic Mind tutorial. We aim to make UKCAT revision simple, visual, but most importantly, affordable. For £20 you can unlock all 150 tutorials in our online course. You can also buy our 6 expert UKCAT guides written by a teacher who scored 900 in 3 sections, or you can have all 150 video tutorials, each of the 6 UKCAT books and a full classroom course for just £35.
Medic Mind. Motivate, mentor, maximize.